They came in 4.4 all cash. They're paying cash for this place. We sold it to the first guy that came in. Actually, the first showing. First person that saw the place, they took it. This is 201 Loma Verde Ave in Palo Alto. It's a 10-plex built in the 1960s. The property consists of 2 2-bed 1-baths and then 8 1-bed 1-baths that are all rentable units. The total lot size is pretty massive at 20,100 square feet. Rather than like using comps in terms of like other sales in the area for single families to value this place, because it's more investor driven, you want to use a net capitalization method. If you take 7,100 square feet and then like, let's say single family pricing in this area is around 2K a square feet, you'd be looking at a price point of $14 million for this place, which just doesn't make any sense. Cap rate is the potential return on investment that you get on a property. So a good cap rate, typically you want to see 8 to 10%. Palo Alto, you're seeing cap rates as low as 3.5%, 4%, which is fairly normal for this area. 4.5 cap for this neighborhood is probably going to be pretty standard. And it's actually higher than some of the comps in the area. Pro forma rents for the 1-bed 1-baths are going to be around $2,800 a month. And then the pro forma rents for the 2-bed 1-baths are going to be $3,650 a month. And those are pretty conservative numbers. This property on an annual basis with pro forma rents, meaning optimized rents, your total gross revenue is going to be about $351K. And then to calculate NOI, you take that $351K, which is your total revenue without expenses, and then you estimate your expenses as well. The expenses for NOI would be things like property tax, insurance. Typically you would be estimating these costs, but I think it was pretty cool that I had access to the property management software that we use because we manage this property and that's how we got the listing. From an expense standpoint, it's about $128K a year after landscaping, maintenance, insurance, taxes. Using a cap rate of 4.5%, using our estimated NOI, we calculated a value of around that high $4 million mark. But the caveat with this property is, again, you have to keep in mind the expenses that the buyer is gonna need up front to repair the balconies and the electrical panels, which is anywhere from around 300 to 400K. Meaning the net adjusted property value would be around that mid-4 mark. Federal Pacific, Challenger, or Zinsco panels, a lot of them fail overload tests. When they're supposed to trip the breaker, when there's an overload of electricity, they don't trip. And so obviously that's really bad because that's literally their only job. Basically all the insurance companies said, if you have a Zinsco panel or if you have a Federal Pacific panel, you need to get that replaced or we're not giving you insurance. The rate of failure on these panels are so high that financial models dictated that it's not profitable to give insurance on companies with these issues. If you can't get a loan, it's pretty hard to sell the property itself. We got a bid from a contractor to replace the main as well as the sub panels on this property for around 80K. There's 3 balconies on this property. They're actually very small, and the bids we got were still for like $250,000 to like 350K, which is pretty ridiculous. And I think that it's indicative of how construction costs have gone in California, because ever since COVID, things have just been getting exponentially higher. SB 721 is such a big deal because in Berkeley in 2015, there was a balcony that was made out of wood. There was a giant house party at that condo. And so the balcony had a bunch of dry rot. It was never inspected over 20 years. Like there was just like a lot of deferred maintenance on that balcony. And unfortunately it collapsed and 6 people passed away. And so there was a giant lawsuit. I think it went all the way up to the Supreme Court. California passed legislation, which is SB 721. So anything greater than 3 units, you had to have the balconies inspected. The mandate to have them inspected was for January 1st of this year. Again, that was just for the inspection to see if it passed or not. If there were things that needed to be fixed or if it didn't pass inspection, then of course you need to repair it. And so the issue that you're running into on a lot of HOAs and condos are that the balconies are not repaired and lenders won't lend on something that needs those repairs. If you have non-urgent repairs that are like non-load bearing or non-structural, you have about 120 days to get everything repaired and then re-inspected. But like it's crazy because if you have like structural damage, you have 15 days. You need to be SB 721 compliant. The electrical panels also need to be replaced for this property. Any buyer for this property would also need to be cash. That limits your buyer pool. We had a target listing price of around 4.45 million. Somebody came in all cash at 4.4 million and they had no problems with the balconies and the electrical panels. But yeah, like I think it was a fantastic deal. I think that the one thing that I learned from this transaction, or what kind of stood out to me, was like just how insane the Palo Alto housing market is. I don't think there's anywhere in the world where you just have a plethora of buyers with $4.5 million cash, $5 million cash that are just waiting to pounce on a property like this. It never ceases to amaze me. People that buy here are just like at a different level. I said it with the last one, but like it pretty much sold itself. Like